Some people look confident, but their confidence feels strangely loud. They enter rooms as if they own them, speak as if they cannot be questioned, and smile as if doubt has never touched them. But watch closely, and something does not quite settle. The laughter is slightly delayed, the posture slightly rehearsed, the certainty slightly too polished to be natural. Confidence rarely needs witnesses, yet there seems to demand an audience. They interrupt before being interrupted, correct before being corrected, dominate before anyone challenges them. And when silence appears, they rush to fill it. It feels like strength, yet it moves like fear. The strangest part is that they may not even know they are acting. What if the performance is so convincing that even they believe it? And what if the real insecurity is hiding behind something you once admired? Imagine a person who walks into every meeting already prepared to disagree. Their tone sharp, their words decisive, their presence calculated to prevent anyone from questioning them. Picture someone who laughs loudly at their own jokes, who speaks over others before they finish, who keeps conversations centered around their achievements without pausing to notice reactions. Imagine a friend who never admits confusion, who answers every question immediately, who insists they have everything handled even when their hands slightly tremble beneath the table. From the outside, it looks like control, like certainty, like the kind of inner stability most people wish they had. They appear unshaken by criticism, unmoved by tension, untouched by awkwardness, as if discomfort simply does not register in their nervous system. But control can be an illusion carefully maintained through constant movement, constant noise, constant assertion of dominance before doubt has a chance to surface. The louder the certainty, the less space there is for anyone to notice hesitation, including the person performing it. What looks like strength often functions as a shield, a way to prevent unpredictable reactions from slipping through the cracks. If no one questions them, they remain safe. If no silence lingers, nothing vulnerable can accidentally emerge. In their mind, staying ahead of judgment means they are in control. Staying dominant means they cannot be diminished. Yet control maintained through performance requires endless vigilance, and vigilance quietly drains something deeper than energy. Because when confidence must be constantly proven, it becomes fragile in ways no one else can see. And beneath that polished surface, something begins to tighten, something that will eventually reveal the first crack. If this is already making sense to you, it means you're starting to notice patterns most people never see. Subscribe, and let's keep exploring how the mind really works. Now, this is where things start to get uncomfortable. Imagine a person who confidently challenges everyone at dinner, dismissing opinions with a smirk, only to grow strangely quiet when someone calmly questions their expertise. The table shifts slightly, nothing dramatic, just a subtle change in tone, and suddenly their voice sharpens, their certainty becoming strangely defensive. They insist louder, repeat themselves, laugh it off, yet their shoulders stiffen as if something fragile has just been touched. This is the moment most people miss, because it does not look like insecurity, it looks like passion, intensity, strong personality. But watch closely and the confidence begins to wobble, not outwardly collapsing, just tightening in subtle, almost invisible ways. The eyes search for agreement, the body leans forward, the voice accelerates, as if speed itself can outrun exposure. What appeared unshakable now reacts, and reaction is the first crack in the illusion of control. True confidence absorbs disagreement without urgency. It does not scramble to re-establish dominance or reclaim the spotlight. When confidence feels threatened, it reveals that it was protecting something delicate all along. The defensive laugh, the exaggerated certainty, the need to win small conversations, these are not signs of power, but signals of hidden instability. And the person performing it may not even feel afraid. They may feel righteous, justified, convinced they are simply strong. But strength that cannot tolerate minor doubt begins to reveal its origin. The first crack does not shatter the mask. It simply shows where the pressure has always been building. And what created that pressure begins long before adulthood, long before boardrooms and dinner tables. Picture someone as a child who raises their hand eagerly, only to be laughed at for giving the wrong answer. The room filling with quiet humiliation. They feel heat rise in their face, their chest tighten, their mind racing to understand what just happened. The next time they speak, their voice carries more certainty, less openness, as if confidence itself could prevent embarrassment. Over time, the brain learns a simple association: hesitation equals danger, dominance equals safety. Neural pathways strengthen around this pattern, reinforcing behaviors that reduce social threat and avoid the sting of exposure. The child does not consciously decide to become loud or assertive. The brain simply chooses strategies that minimize pain. Each successful display of boldness that avoids ridicule rewards the nervous system with relief, and relief is a powerful teacher. Relief feels like safety, and safety becomes addictive, even when the method of achieving it is rigid or exaggerated. Eventually, acting confident no longer feels like acting, it feels necessary, automatic, protective. The brain prefers predictable responses over uncertain vulnerability, so it favors dominance over openness. If confidence prevents shame once, the mind records it as a survival tactic worth repeating. Years later, the adult who interrupts conversations or refuses to admit doubt may believe they are just naturally strong. But beneath the surface, their nervous system is replaying an old equation: certainty equals protection, vulnerability equals risk. If you have noticed this pattern in your own life, describe what happened. Someone reading may recognize themselves in it. What looks like personality may simply be conditioning refined over time, shaped by moments the brain decided must never happen again. And here is the unsettling part: the brain benefits from maintaining this illusion more than we realize. Because as long as the mask works, the deeper fear remains undisturbed, waiting quietly beneath the performance. The performance of confidence is not random. It offers something emotionally rewarding that keeps the behavior alive beneath conscious awareness. When others hesitate around them, when conversations bend in their direction, they experience a subtle rush that feels like validation. Dominance can create distance from judgment, and distance from judgment feels like control over potential rejection. If no one sees uncertainty, no one can attack it, and that illusion provides immediate relief from social threat. There is also admiration. Even if it is superficial, people often mistake loud certainty for leadership. Being perceived as decisive grants status, and status temporarily silences inner doubt that would otherwise echo in private moments. The insecure mind does not crave power for cruelty. It craves insulation from shame. Every time someone nods in agreement, every time a room falls silent after their statement, the ego receives reassurance. Reassurance becomes the hidden payoff, a quiet confirmation that the mask is working. Without that confirmation, anxiety begins to surface, subtle at first, then increasingly difficult to ignore. So the behavior repeats, not because it is authentic, but because it soothes something fragile underneath. The payoff is not confidence, it is the avoidance of exposure. Exposure threatens identity, and identity feels more dangerous to lose than approval itself. And the deeper question begins to form: what happens when the performance no longer delivers the same relief? Imagine a person who has always been described as strong, outspoken, unshakable, the one who never backs down from a challenge. Picture them correcting others automatically, stepping into every disagreement, feeling uneasy when they are not the most certain voice in the room. One evening, someone gently points out that they rarely admit uncertainty, and the comment lingers longer than expected. They laugh it off at first, dismissing it as jealousy or misunderstanding. Yet later they replay the moment repeatedly in their mind. If you have noticed this in your own life, describe what happened. Someone reading may recognize themselves in it. Because at some point, the strategy stopped being a tactic and became a self-definition. They are no longer acting confident. They believe they are confident, and questioning the behavior feels like questioning who they are. Identity forms around repetition, and repetition hardens into personality traits that feel fixed and unquestionable. Admitting insecurity would now mean dismantling an image built over years of reinforcement and social feedback. That dismantling feels threatening, not because insecurity is fatal, but because identity instability feels like psychological freefall. So the mask fuses with the self until there is no clear boundary between protection and personality. And when someone challenges the performance, it feels personal, invasive, almost disrespectful. The trap is subtle because the stronger the identity appears, the more fragile it becomes internally. What began as protection now demands constant defense, and defense consumes more energy than anyone admits. The question is no longer whether they are insecure, but who they would be without the performance. And that question quietly waits, because the mind resists looking at what might unravel everything. What if the loud certainty was never arrogance, but a nervous system attempting to negotiate safety in unpredictable social environments? What if the sharp tone, the quick correction, the refusal to hesitate were not signs of superiority but signs of vigilance? Vigilance feels powerful because it anticipates threat before it appears, creating the illusion of control over social outcomes. But vigilance is exhausting, even when it hides behind charisma and dominance. The person who seems unshakable may simply be unwilling to risk the unfamiliar territory of visible doubt. Doubt exposes dependency on others, and dependency threatens carefully constructed self-images built around independence. Yet genuine confidence does not fear exposure. It does not require constant reinforcement to remain stable. There is a quiet difference between expressing certainty and needing to project certainty. One arises from internal alignment, the other from anticipated judgment. When you observe exaggerated confidence, the question shifts from admiration to curiosity. Curiosity reveals tension where perfection once seemed flawless. The performance becomes less impressive and more revealing, less intimidating and more human. Because behind the intensity is often a person who learned early that softness invited harm. Understanding this does not excuse the behavior, but it reframes it from dominance to defense. And defense, when seen clearly, loses some of its authority over perception. The mask becomes visible not as deception, but as adaptation. Adaptation once ensured belonging, but belonging built on performance creates distance from authenticity. That distance slowly reshapes how relationships form and what intimacy begins to mean. And once you see that shift, it becomes impossible to unsee how fragile the entire structure really is. There is a moment when the performance pauses, often alone, often late at night, when no audience remains to validate the role. In that silence, confidence feels different, less loud, less certain, more uncertain than the public version suggests. The mind replays conversations, searching for signs of weakness that may have slipped through unnoticed. Without witnesses, dominance has no function, and the nervous system does not know where to direct its energy. This is where subtle awareness begins, not as a dramatic revelation, but as a faint recognition of effort. Effort to maintain tone, effort to maintain posture, effort to maintain superiority in small exchanges. Awareness does not immediately dissolve the behavior. It simply introduces distance between identity and action. Distance allows observation without immediate defense, and observation softens the urgency to perform. The person may begin to notice how often certainty rises automatically, like a reflex rather than a choice. They may notice how discomfort appears not when they are doubted, but when they imagine being doubted. Imagined judgment can feel as powerful as real criticism, and the body reacts before logic intervenes. This quiet shift is not transformation, it is recognition. Recognition that what felt like personality might have been protection rehearsed too many times. And once that recognition exists, even faintly, the performance no longer feels entirely unconscious. Something subtle begins to loosen, not dramatically, not publicly, but internally. And what loosens next may change how the mirror looks back at them. At some point, the mirror stops reflecting the image others see and begins reflecting the effort required to maintain it. The confident persona still appears intact, yet the person behind it starts noticing the tension in their jaw, the rehearsed timing of their responses. They begin to sense how often their certainty arrives before genuine thought has fully formed. What once felt natural now feels slightly mechanical, like a script delivered too many times. The mirror does not accuse. It simply reveals patterns repeated so often they became invisible. It shows how disagreement triggers acceleration, how silence triggers commentary, how vulnerability triggers redirection. There is no dramatic collapse, only an uncomfortable awareness that the performance never truly rested. And with that awareness comes a quiet question about who is actually being protected. Is it reputation, status, admiration, or something far older and more fragile? The realization does not instantly dismantle the identity, but it weakens the illusion of necessity. If the mask was built for survival, survival may no longer require the same intensity. Yet letting it soften feels risky because others have grown accustomed to the confident version. Changing threatens social expectations, and expectations can feel like contracts silently signed. So the mirror presents a choice without demanding it. Remain the character everyone recognizes, or risk discovering the self that never needed to perform so loudly. The reflection waits patiently because it knows the performance cannot run forever. And when the noise fades, what remains is not weakness, but something far more revealing. Insecure confidence is not obvious. It rarely looks like trembling or visible fear. It often looks like authority, decisiveness, even leadership. That is why it is so difficult to recognize within ourselves. The performance can feel empowering, protective, even admirable. But beneath it, there is usually a history that shaped it quietly and persistently. A history of moments where vulnerability felt unsafe, where exposure felt costly. The mind adapted, the nervous system learned, and the identity formed around those lessons. None of it was accidental. Yet adaptation is not the same as authenticity. When confidence requires constant maintenance, it reveals the effort beneath the surface. When strength cannot tolerate uncertainty, it exposes the fear it tries to outrun. And when dominance feels necessary in every room, it quietly asks what would happen without it. The unsettling truth is that insecurity does not disappear when it is hidden behind certainty. It simply changes costume. So the next time you encounter someone who seems almost too confident, watch closely. And the next time you feel compelled to appear unshakable, pause internally and notice the impulse. You may discover that the real strength was never in the performance at all. On Psyhow, we explore the patterns beneath behavior, the quiet forces shaping identity and perception. Because sometimes the loudest confidence hides the softest question.